Welcome back, you beautiful walking contradictions, you silent storms wrapped in human skin, you misunderstood masterpieces they never saw coming. I've been waiting for you because something happened recently, didn't it? Something shifted in the air, something cracked in their perfect little world, and now they're all standing there in shock, trying to process what the hell just went down. Their golden boy, their chosen one, their untouchable champion, the one they built their hopes on, the one they respect like he was carved from marble and destiny. He got demolished, didn't he? And the best part, the part that's eating them alive right now, is that you're the one who did it, and you didn't even break a sweat. Let's talk about what really happened in that room, because they're never going to tell the truth about it. They're going to rewrite the story, twist the narrative, find excuses and explanations that help them sleep at night, but you were there. You saw it. You felt it. That moment when the air got heavy and the silence became so thick you could taste it. Their golden boy walked in like he always does, dripping with confidence, surrounded by his little court of admirers, everyone nodding at his jokes, laughing at his stories, treating him like royalty because that's what they've been doing for years. He's the one who always wins, the one who always has the answer, the one who makes everything look effortless, the one they compare everyone else to when they want to make you feel small. But then you walked in, and something was different this time, wasn't it? You weren't playing their game anymore. You weren't performing for their approval. You weren't shrinking yourself to make him look bigger. You just existed, calm, centered, unbothered, like you'd already seen the ending of this movie and knew exactly how it was going to play out. And he felt it, didn't he? He felt the shift, felt the change in pressure, felt something in you that wasn't there before. Or maybe it was always there, but now you weren't hiding it anymore. And that's when the performance started. 'Cause that's what he does when he senses a threat. He turns up the volume. He gets louder, more animated, more aggressive, trying to dominate the space, trying to remind everyone who the alpha is supposed to be. He threw his little verbal jabs at you, those subtle insults disguised as jokes, those passive, aggressive comments wrapped in friendly tones, testing you, prodding you, trying to get a reaction, trying to make you flinch. Everyone was watching, waiting to see how you'd respond, waiting for you to either fight back and look emotional or stay quiet and look weak. But you did neither. You just looked at him with those eyes, those calm, unbothered, slightly amused eyes that said, "Is that really all you've got?" You didn't defend, didn't explain, didn't react. You just let his words hang in the air like smoke, dissolving into nothing because they had no power over you anymore. And that's when everyone started to notice something was wrong, because their golden boy's attacks were landing but not doing any damage, like punching water. And they said, worse than boards. But because those boards were landing but not doing any damage, like punching water. Then came the moment, the beautiful, devastating, unforgettable moment that's now burned into their memories forever. He made his big move, his power play, the thing he does that always works, always gets the crowd on his side, always makes him look brilliant. Maybe it was a presentation, maybe it was an argument, maybe it was some display of knowledge or skill or charisma that's supposed to remind everyone why he's the chosen one. And he executed it perfectly, exactly like he's done 100 times before, waiting for the applause, waiting for the validation, waiting for everyone to bow down and acknowledge his greatness. But this time you didn't just sit there nodding like everyone else. You did something that changed everything forever. You spoke. Not loud, not aggressive, not emotional, just calm, clear, precise, like a surgeon making a single perfect cut. And in that moment, with just a few words, just one observation, just one undeniable truth that everyone had been too afraid or too blind to say out loud, you dismantled everything. You didn't attack him personally. You didn't insult him. You didn't play his game. You just pointed out the flaw in his logic, the hole in his argument, the truth behind his performance. And it was so obvious, so clear, so irrefutable that everyone in the room felt it immediately. The emperor had no clothes, and you were the only one with the courage to say it out loud. His face changed, didn't it? That split second where the mask slipped, and you could see the panic underneath, the realization that he'd just been exposed, that his armor had a crack, and everyone could see it now. The room went silent, not the comfortable silence of people thinking, but that heavy, suffocating silence that comes when something fundamental has just shifted, when the hierarchy has just been challenged, when the king has just been checked by someone who wasn't even supposed to be playing chess. Everyone was frozen, holding their breath, eyes darting between you and him, trying to process what just happened, trying to figure out if they really saw what they think they saw. Their golden boy, the one who always has a comeback, the one who always wins every exchange, was speechless, actually speechless, standing there with his mouth slightly open, his mind racing to find a response, find a defense, find a way to turn this around, but coming up empty, because the truth doesn't have a counterargument. And what did you do in that moment of absolute power, in that moment where you could have twisted the knife, could have pressed your advantage, could have humiliated him the way he's humiliated so many others? You fixed your collar, didn't you? That small, casual gesture that said more than any words ever could. You adjusted your shirt, straightened your jacket, maybe brushed some imaginary dust off your shoulder, and the message was crystal clear without you having to say a single word. This is beneath me. You're beneath me. I'm not even going to waste energy being emotional about this. And that gesture, that tiny, casual, devastatingly dismissive gesture, that's what broke him completely, because it showed everyone that you weren't even trying, that this wasn't a victory you were celebrating. It was just a truth you were stating before moving on with your day. They watched him crumble, not dramatically, not obviously, but in that subtle way where a man's entire foundation cracked. His shoulders dropped just slightly. His voice lost that confident edge when he finally found words to speak. His jokes for the rest of the meeting didn't land the same way. His presence didn't fill the room like it used to. And more importantly, they watched you, really watched you for the first time, because suddenly you weren't invisible anymore. You weren't background noise. You weren't someone they could ignore or dismiss or underestimate. You were the one who just did what everyone else was too afraid to do. You were the one who saw through the illusion. You were the one who had the spine to speak truth when everyone else was playing pretend. Now let's talk about what happened after, because that's where it gets really interesting. You left that room and went about your day like nothing significant had happened. Because to you, it wasn't some grand victory. It was just you being yourself, speaking your truth, refusing to participate in their theater anymore. But them, they couldn't stop thinking about it, couldn't stop replaying that moment, couldn't stop analyzing every detail of what went down. Their group chats were on fire, weren't they? Everyone trying to process what they witnessed, Everyone trying to figure out what just happened to their untouchable golden boy. Some of them were defending him, making excuses, trying to minimize what you did, trying to convince themselves it was just a lucky shot, just a fluke, just one moment that doesn't mean anything. But others, the ones who've been secretly tired of his act, the ones who've been quietly suffocated by his ego, the ones who've been waiting for someone to knock him off his pedestal, they were having a completely different conversation. Suddenly they were remembering all the times he dismissed other people's ideas, all the times he took credit for other people's work, all the times he made someone feel small to make himself feel big, all the times they laughed along because it was safer than being his target. And now they were looking at you differently, with a mixture of respect, fear, curiosity, and something else they can't quite name, because you just did something that fundamentally altered the power dynamics in their world, and they don't know whether to be grateful or terrified. The golden boy, he's spiraling right now, trust me, even if he's pretending everything is fine. He's going through his memories, trying to figure out how he missed you, how he underestimated you, how he didn't see you coming. He's analyzing that moment over and over, trying to find what he should have said, what he could have done differently, how he could have won. But the answer keeps coming back the same. He couldn't have, because he was fighting someone who wasn't even fighting. He was performing for someone who stopped watching his show. He was trying to dominate someone who had already transcended his game. And that realization, that slow dawning understanding that you're not just another competitor, you're something else entirely, that's what's keeping him up at night. His followers, his admirers, his little court of yes men and yes women, they're confused right now. Their faith is shaken. The person they've been modeling themselves after, the person they've been trying to impress, the person they thought had all the answers, just got exposed, and they don't know how to process that. Some of them are going to double down, going to defend him louder, going to attack you harder, because their entire identity is wrapped up in his image, and if he falls, then what does that make them? But others are going to quietly distance themselves, going to stop laughing at his jokes quite so loud, going to stop agreeing with him quite so enthusiastically, going to start paying attention to you instead, trying to understand what you have that he doesn't. And you're just continuing your life like none of this matters, because to you, it doesn't. Not in the way they think it does. You're not calculating your next move. You're not planning how to capitalize on this moment. You're not trying to become the new golden boy, because you never wanted that throne in the first place. You just wanted to exist without pretending, to speak without filtering, to be yourself without apologizing. And if that threatens their hierarchy, then that's their problem, not yours. You fixed your collar and moved on, because that's what people do when they're not performing, when they're not seeking validation, when they're not dependent on other people's opinions to know their worth. But here's what they don't understand yet, what they're going to figure out slowly over the coming days and weeks and months. That moment wasn't about you defeating him. It was about you revealing yourself, showing them a version of you they never knew existed, or maybe never bothered to notice. You've been there all along, quiet, observant, learning, growing, building yourself in the shadows while they were all focused on the spotlight. You weren't trying to win their game. You were playing a completely different game, one with different rules, different objectives, different measures of success. And now that they've seen a glimpse of who you really are, now that they've witnessed what you're capable of when you stop hiding, they can't unsee it. can't unhear it, can't go back to treating you like background noise. Their golden boy is gonna try to come back. Of course he is. His ego won't let him stay down. He's gonna plan his comeback, rehearse his lines, prepare for round 2, try to reclaim his position. But here's the thing, the kingdom already fell. The spell already broke. The illusion already shattered, and no amount of performance can put it back together. Because everyone in that room saw something they can't forget. They saw him speechless. They saw him small. They saw him human. And once you see the man behind the curtain, you can never see the wizard the same way again. His jokes won't be as funny. His confidence will look more like arrogance. His charisma will feel more like manipulation. Because now they know what you know, that it's all just a performance, and performances only work when the audience believes in them. Meanwhile, you're becoming something they don't have words for, something that doesn't fit their categories, something that breaks their understanding of how people are supposed to be. You're not playing power games, but somehow you have power. You're not seeking attention, but somehow you command it. You're not trying to dominate, but somehow people defer to you, because real power doesn't announce itself. Real authority doesn't need to prove itself. Real strength doesn't flex, it just exists, and existence is enough. They're going to try to figure you out, try to decode you, try to understand your strategy, but they're going to fail because you don't have a strategy. You just have authenticity. And authenticity can't be reverse engineered or copied or faked. Some of them are going to try to befriend you now, suddenly interested in what you have to say, suddenly laughing at your jokes, suddenly acting like they always saw your potential. And you're going to see right through them, aren't you? Because you've been watching them for years. You know who was kind when you were nobody. You remember who ignored you when you had nothing to offer them. You can spot the opportunists from a mile away. You don't owe them anything. Not your time, not your energy, not your secrets, not your friendship. They had their chance to see you and they chose not to. They were too busy respecting their golden boy to notice the real thing standing right in front of them. Others are going to try to bring you down now, going to look for your weaknesses, going to spread rumors, going to try to catch you slipping, because your rise threatens their comfortable little world. If you can come out of nowhere and topple their champion, then maybe they're not safe either. Maybe their position isn't secure. Maybe the hierarchy they've been climbing isn't as stable as they thought. So they're going to test you, push you, provoke you, try to make you emotional, try to make you defensive, try to make you play their game so they can beat you at it. But you're not going to, are you? Because you already know the only way to win their game is not to play it at all. The golden boy himself might try to befriend you, might extend an olive branch, might act like what happened was no big deal, just friendly competition, just intellectual sparring between equals. He's going to try to bring you into his circle, make you one of his followers, neutralize the threat by making you part of his team. But you're going to see that for what it is, a control tactic, a way to keep his enemies close, a way to make sure you never challenge him again. And you're going to decline, politely, calmly, without explanation, because you don't need to explain yourself to people who only respect power. You just need to keep being yourself and let them figure out the rest. Here's what's really happening beneath all of this. Here's what that moment in the room really meant. You didn't just beat their golden boy. You broke the spell of golden boys in general. You showed everyone that the emperor has no clothes, that charisma without substance is just noise, that confidence without competence is just delusion, that performance without authenticity is just theater. You reminded them that real power is quiet, real intelligence is humble, real strength is gentle, and that the people they should be paying attention to are often the ones they've been ignoring. You didn't do this intentionally, you didn't plan it, you didn't scheme for it, it just happened. Because you finally stopped pretending to be smaller than you are. And now you're walking through a world that looks the same, but feels completely different. Because you're different, not because of what you did, but because of what you stopped doing. You stopped apologizing for existing, stopped shrinking to make others comfortable, stopped playing dumb to protect egos, stopped being silent when you had something to say. You started trusting your observations, speaking your truth, taking up space, being yourself without permission. And that's what terrifies them more than anything, not that you defeated their champion, but that you did it by accident, by being authentic, which means they can't protect themselves from you, can't prepare for you. I can't predict you, because you're not following any script they recognize. The room went silent, because in that moment everyone felt the shift. Everyone sensed that something fundamental had changed, that the old rules didn't apply anymore, that a new player had entered the game. Except, you're not playing the game, you're playing something else entirely. And somehow that makes you more dangerous than anyone who's trying to win. You fixed your collar because you were already moving on, already thinking about what's next, already focused on things that matter more than their little hierarchies and power struggles. And that gesture, that casual, dismissive gesture, it told them everything they needed to know. You're not here to compete with them. You're here to evolve past them. So let them watch, let them whisper, let them try to figure you out. Because the more they focus on you, the less they focus on themselves. And the less they focus on themselves, the further behind they fall. You're not worried about their golden boy making a comeback, because you were never worried about their golden boy in the first place. You were worried about yourself, about becoming who you're meant to be, about living with integrity, about speaking truth, about refusing to participate in delusions. And somewhere along the way, without trying, without planning, without even noticing, you became something they can't compete with, because you're not competing, you're just being. And being beats performing every single time. They thought that moment was about conflict, about dominance, about winning and losing, but it wasn't. It was about revelation, about truth, about the difference between who someone pretends to be and who someone actually is. Their golden boy is who he pretends to be, all image, all performance, all surface, and when you scratched the surface, there was nothing underneath. Ah, look who just walked through chaos like it was a hallway. You beautiful, accidental catastrophe. You magnificent, unbothered force of nature. Welcome back, or should I say, welcome to the realization that while you were sleeping, while you were focused on your own survival, while you weren't even looking in their direction, you somehow managed to dismantle everything they spent years building. And the best part, the absolutely devastating part, you didn't even notice. You weren't trying to win. You weren't chasing validation. You weren't out for revenge. You were just existing at a frequency so authentic, it shattered their entire foundation without you lifting a single finger. Let me paint this picture for you. They built their legacy carefully, brick by calculated brick, smile by manipulative smile. They curated their image, controlled their narrative, maintained their power structure, surrounded themselves with yes men and followers who never questioned the illusion. They thought they were untouchable, thought their empire was permanent, thought their influence would last forever. They created systems designed to keep people beneath them, to maintain the hierarchy, to ensure nobody could ever rise high enough to challenge their position. Everything was planned, everything was controlled, everything was exactly how they designed it. Until you showed up. Or more accurately, until you stopped showing up. See, they expected you to fight. They prepared for your anger, your retaliation, your desperate attempts to prove yourself worthy of their respect. They had contingency plans for every scenario where you came at them directly. What they never prepared for, what they couldn't possibly anticipate, was your complete and total disinterest in their entire game. You didn't challenge their authority because you stopped recognizing it. You didn't fight their system because you built your own. You didn't tear down their legacy intentionally. It just crumbled naturally the moment you stopped feeding it with your attention, your energy, your belief in its validity. You know what destroys empires faster than war, faster than rebellion, faster than any direct attack? Irrelevance. Obsolescence. When something becomes so outdated, so unnecessary, that people simply move past it without acknowledgement, that's what you did to them. You became the proof that their entire legacy was optional. You showed everyone watching that there's another path, another way, another level of existence that doesn't require their approval, their systems, their outdated blueprints for success. You didn't destroy their legacy by attacking it. You destroyed it by transcending it so completely that it became a museum piece people point to while laughing about how primitive things used to be. They're panicking right now, scrambling, trying to understand what happened. They're in emergency meetings, private calls, desperate group chats trying to diagnose how everything fell apart. They're analyzing your moves like you're a chess grandmaster who just executed some brilliant strategy. But here's the hilarious truth. You weren't playing chess. You weren't even at the board. You were in another room entirely, building something so far beyond their comprehension that by the time they realized what was happening, you'd already lapped them twice without breaking a sweat. They studied your silence like it was tactical. They interpreted your absence as strategic. They convinced themselves you were plotting, scheming, planning some elaborate takedown. But the reality cuts so much deeper. You genuinely forgot they existed. You were so consumed with your own evolution, your own growth, your own transformation, that they didn't even register as competition anymore. They weren't your rivals. They weren't your enemies. They weren't obstacles to overcome. They were simply people who existed in a reality you'd already outgrown. And that complete absence of acknowledgement, that total removal of their importance from your consciousness, that's what obliterated everything they built. Because their entire legacy was constructed on the foundation of being relevant, being important, being the center of attention. The moment you genuinely stopped caring, the moment your indifference became real and not performative, their structure had no base to stand on. Let's talk about what you were actually doing while their world was collapsing. You were healing, but not the Instagram aesthetic kind with sage and crystals and photogenic tears. You were doing the ugly work, the silent work, the work that doesn't get applause. You were rebuilding your foundation from the ground up, not with their materials, not with their blueprint, but with raw truth and hard-earned wisdom. You were learning lessons they'll never understand because they've never had to question their own foundation. You were developing strength they can't comprehend because they've only known power through control, never through transformation. You stopped performing. That's the key they'll never grasp. You stopped curating your life for external validation. Stopped crafting messages designed to impress. Stopped making moves calculated to earn recognition. You started living for something they can't measure. Success by metrics they don't understand. Fulfillment in ways their scoreboard can't track. And every day you spent genuinely engaged in your own growth was another day their influence diminished. Not because you were fighting it, but because you were proving it unnecessary. You became the walking evidence that everything they claimed was essential wasn't. They built their legacy on making people believe they needed permission, needed approval, needed to climb their ladder to matter. You shattered that illusion by mattering without their permission. You succeeded without their approval. You built something meaningful without touching their ladder. And everyone who was watching, everyone who was trapped in that same system, believing it was the only way, saw you and thought for the first time, wait, you can do that? You can just leave? You can build something better instead of fighting for scraps at their table? The answer was always yes. But you were the first one brave enough, or maybe just indifferent enough, to actually do it. Now, they're left holding the pieces of a legacy that suddenly looks pathetic. All their accomplishments, all their accolades, all their carefully constructed achievements, they all require context now. They need footnotes explaining why they mattered in a system that no longer exists. They're like kings of a kingdom whose citizens simply walked away and built something better in the next valley. No revolution, no overthrow, just mass exodus towards something more authentic. And you didn't even lead that exodus intentionally. You just started walking, and people noticed the direction looked more promising than anything they'd seen before. Here's where it gets beautiful. They can't even attack you properly now. They can't discredit you because you never claimed their credentials. They can't cancel you because you're not performing in their arena. They can't tear down your reputation because you built yours on foundations they don't have access to. Authenticity, genuine connection, real transformation. Things you can't fake or destroy with gossip. Every weapon in their arsenal was designed for people playing their game. You're not even in the same game. You're not in the same dimension. You're operating on frequencies they don't have receivers for. Watch what happens next. They'll try to downplay your impact. Call it luck, call it a phase, call it anything except what it actually is, evolution beyond their paradigm. They'll try to pull you back into their narrative, create drama, manufacture conflict, anything to make you relevant to their story again. Because if you're part of their story still matters. Your job is simple. Keep not paying attention. Keep building, keep evolving, keep existing so far beyond their sphere that their attempts to engage you look desperate and sad. Every time they mention your name, it's free advertising for your alternative path. Every time they try to diminish you, they remind everyone watching that you got out. The psychological warfare here is exquisite. They're trapped. If they ignore you, you continue rising unchallenged, and their legacy fades into irrelevance. If they acknowledge you, they validate your importance and admit you've become significant enough to threaten them. If they attack you, they look bitter and threatened, proving your power. If they praise you, they legitimize your path and undermine their own. There's no winning move for them because you changed the game board entirely. You didn't beat them at their game, you made their game obsolete. That's not just victory, that's transcendence. And the most devastating part, you're still not paying attention. You're not tracking their response, not measuring their panic, not savoring their downfall. You're genuinely busy building something that matters to you. The destruction of their legacy is just a side effect, collateral damage from your growth. You're not even looking back to see the rubble. You're too focused on the architecture ahead. This might be the most savage form of winning that exists. Winning so completely that you don't even notice the victory because you're already focused on the next level of your evolution. Let me tell you what's happening in rooms you'll never enter. Former allies of theirs are quietly watching you, making notes, wondering if maybe they backed the wrong horse. People who dismissed you are now studying your moves, trying to reverse engineer your success without understanding that it can't be replicated through strategy because it came from authenticity. Young people who looked up to that old legacy are now seeing cracks in the facade, asking questions about why the emperor has no clothes. The cultural shift you accidentally triggered is irreversible now. You opened a door that can't be closed. They built their legacy on closed systems, gatekeeping, maintaining scarcity, controlling access. You succeeded through open systems, sharing freely, creating abundance, offering access. Their model required keeping people beneath them. Your model lifted as you climbed. They needed followers. You attracted fellow builders. They demanded loyalty. You inspired choice. Every fundamental difference between their approach and yours is now on display, and the comparison isn't flattering for them. Their legacy looks like an artifact from a less evolved era. Your path looks like the future, and you weren't even trying to make that comparison. It just became obvious. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Some part of you might feel guilty. Some small voice might whisper that you should feel bad about their downfall, that you should have been more careful, more considerate, less destructive. Silence that voice immediately. You didn't destroy them, their own hollow foundation destroyed them. You didn't attack their legacy, you simply existed in your truth, and their lies couldn't survive proximity to that much authenticity. A genuine legacy, one built on real value, real integrity, real substance, would have survived your alternative path, would have coexisted, would have adapted. The fact that theirs crumbled reveals it was always fragile, always dependent on control rather than genuine value. You don't owe them protection from reality. You don't owe them the dimming of your light so theirs looks brighter. You don't owe them the sacrifice of your truth to maintain their illusion. They had every opportunity to build something real. They chose smoke and mirrors instead. They chose manipulation over authenticity. They chose control over trust. Those were their choices, and the consequences of those choices are theirs to bear. Your only responsibility was to yourself, to your growth, to your truth. You fulfilled that responsibility. Their collapse is simply the natural result of building castles on sand. Here's what they'll never understand. You didn't win because you were smarter. You didn't win because you were more ruthless. You didn't win because you played their game better. You won because you stopped playing entirely. You won because you asked the one question they never wanted anyone to ask. What if this whole system is optional? What if there's another way? What if I just do something different? That question, that simple revolutionary question, that's what brought down their entire empire. Because once people realize the cage is unlocked, once they understand participation is voluntary, the whole structure depends on collective agreement to pretend otherwise. You were the child who pointed out the emperor's nakedness. You were the voice that said the obvious truth everyone was thinking but nobody dared speak. You were the first one to walk off the hamster wheel, and everyone else stopped to watch where you'd go. And when you didn't collapse, when you didn't fail, when you actually thrived, the spell broke. The mass hypnosis ended. The collective agreement to pretend dissolved. All because you genuinely stopped caring about their validation enough to risk finding out what happened without it. Turns out, what happened was freedom. What happened was growth. What happened was the destruction of their carefully maintained illusion. They're studying your path now, trying to bottle your success, package your authenticity, turn your revolution into a product they can sell. They'll fail. Because what you did can't be commodified. It can't be taught in their seminars or packaged in their programs or reduced to 7 easy steps. What you did required the one thing they'll never have, the courage to genuinely not care about their approval. That's not a technique, that's a fundamental shift in consciousness. That's not a strategy, that's liberation. And liberation can't be marketed by the same people who profit from cages. Let's talk about legacy for a moment. Real legacy, not the performative kind they built. Real legacy isn't about monuments with your name on them. It's not about how many people know who you are. It's not about historical records or Wikipedia pages or documentary films. Real legacy is the ripple effect of your existence on people's consciousness. It's the lives you changed by being authentically yourself. It's the permission you gave others simply by walking your path unapologetically. It's the new possibilities you opened by proving they existed. That's legacy. And by that measure, you're building something they never will. Because their legacy required them to be the center, the authority, the answer. Yours multiplies itself every time someone sees your example and finds their own path. You created a template for freedom. You didn't mean to, you weren't trying to, but your genuine journey became a map for others. And that map doesn't lead to you, doesn't make you the guru, doesn't center you as the answer. It leads to themselves, their truth, their authentic path. That's why it's so powerful. That's why their legacy can't compete. They created followers dependent on them. You accidentally created free thinkers who found themselves. Their legacy needs maintenance, requires protection, demands defense. Yours grows organically, spreads naturally, evolves independently. You planted seeds, they built monuments. Guess which one survives the changing seasons? Now they're faced with a choice, and they hate every option. They can try to co-opt your movement, claim they were always about authenticity too, rebrand their legacy to look more like your path. But that's transparent. Everyone will see the desperation, the pivot, the admission that your way was right all along. Or they can double down on their original path, insist their legacy is still valid, still valuable, still the right way. But that isolation becomes more obvious daily as more people migrate toward authenticity. Or they can fade quietly, accept obsolescence, retire their legacy gracefully, but their ego won't allow that. So they're stuck in paralysis, watching you move forward while they're frozen in indecision. And you're not even tracking this. You're not waiting for their next move, not preparing counter strategies, not watching your back, because you've transcended the entire dynamic. You're not in competition with them because you're not in the same arena. You're building in dimensions they don't even perceive. You're creating value they don't know how to measure. You're succeeding by metrics they don't have instruments for. Every day they spend trying to understand you is a day you're 10 steps further into territory they'll never reach. Not because they're not allowed, but because they can't even see it exists. Let's get visceral for a moment. Do you understand what you've done? You've made their entire life's work look like a rough draft. Everything they accomplished, every accolade they earned, every achievement they celebrated, it all looks like practice now, like training wheels. Like the thing you do before you understand how it really works. You didn't invalidate their accomplishments directly. You just revealed there were levels beyond what they ever imagined. You showed there was a game after the game they thought was final. You discovered there was more depth than their deepest dive. And now their legacy looks shallow in comparison, not because it is, but because you revealed how much more was possible. They'll try to diminish this. They'll say you got lucky, caught lightning in a bottle, can't sustain it, will eventually crash. Let them. Their need to believe your success is temporary is the only comfort they have left. Their denial is the last defense mechanism against accepting they wasted years building something that could be surpassed by someone who wasn't even trying. Every month you sustain this, every year you continue growing, every milestone you pass without reverting to their path is another crack in their narrative. Time is your ally now. Duration proves this wasn't luck. Consistency proves this wasn't a fluke. Evolution proves this wasn't an accident. Here's the real mindbender. You destroyed their legacy without destroying them. They still exist. They're still out there, still talking, still performing, still maintaining the facade. But it's hollow now. Everyone can see it. The magic trick has been explained. The illusion has been revealed. They're going through the motions of a legacy that no longer carries weight. Like an actor performing a play to an empty theater, technically doing everything right, but none of it matters because the audience left. You didn't kick the audience out. You didn't convince them to leave. You just started performing something more interesting in the next room and they wandered over. The cruelest part, from their perspective, is that you'd probably help them if they asked genuinely. You'd share what you learned, offer insights from your journey, support their authentic evolution. Because you're not actually their enemy. You never were. You were just someone on a different path who accidentally revealed their path was optional, but they can't ask. Their ego won't allow it. Admitting they need guidance from someone they once dismissed would shatter the last remnants of their self-image. So, they stay trapped in their crumbling legacy, too proud to evolve, too afraid to admit the game changed. That prison, that's one they built themselves. You know what the craziest part is? You're still underestimating your impact. You still don't fully grasp what you've done. You see your personal growth, your individual journey, your private victories. You don't see the cultural shift you triggered. You don't see the permission you granted to thousands of people who needed to see someone choose differently. You don't see the conversations happening in private, the decisions being made, the lives being changed by people who saw your example and found courage they didn't know they had. You're the first domino, and you're so focused on standing straight you haven't turned around to see the cascade you started.